time to bring you up to speed with what's happening globally and in Nigeria. The headline says Palestinian American families decry U.S. silence. Thailand's ex-Prime Minister Shinawatra to be released. U.S. House Speaker criticizes aid deals as Senate supports bill. Ukraine alleges Russia's debut hypersonic missile use. And 1 dead, 5 wounded in New York shooting. On Israel-Gaza war, Yasmin Elagha received a message from the United States government, confirmed receipt after 2 of her cousins, both Palestinian Americans, were detained by Israeli forces as they sheltered close to Khan Younis in southern Gaza. That is the only message she has received. Now she is calling on the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden to do more to assure their safety and secure their release. Elagha said her 2 cousins, 18-year-old Barak Elagha and 20-year-old Hashim Elagha, are being held without charge. Hers is one of numerous families pushing for the protection of Palestinian Americans taken into Israeli custody as the war on Gaza stretches on. They assembled in Washington, D.C. for a news conference on Monday to call for action. In the days since, Elagha has sent a flood of emails to U.S. embassies in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv and Cairo, as well as U.S. task force in Gaza. She has received only one reply confirming her appeal had been received. The wait for information has been agonizing, she said. The minutes feel like hours, so it feels like it has been already a month since they've been gone. Thaksin Shinawatra, Thailand's jailed former prime minister, is set to be released. Thaksin, 74, who was imprisoned for 8 years for abuse of power before a royal pardon lessened the term to 1 year, was granted release on parole. Prime Minister Setra Thavisin said, according to report on Tuesday. Last August, Thaksin returned to Thailand following over 14 years in exile and was taken instantly to court, where he was jailed for 8 years for abuse of power. Thaksin was transferred to hospital after a single night in prison when his blood pressure rose. The king gave him a royal pardon soon afterwards, decreasing the sentence to 1 year. According to reports from Thailand earlier, quoting Justice Minister Tawi Soksong, that Thaksin was among 930 inmates given parole on Tuesday in his case for age and health reasons, and that he was anticipated to be released after February 17th. Thaksin swept to power in 2001 on a populist platform that appealed to rural Thais who had long been abandoned by the country's ruling elites. He was returned to office in a landslide 5 years later, but the military soon seized power in a coup. Thaksin, who was also accused of grave human rights abuses amidst a violent conflict in the country's mostly Muslim southern provinces and a drugs war which killed thousands, was later convicted of abuse of power and went into exile, mostly in Dubai. Stretha is from the Peru Thai party led by Thaksin's youngest daughter, Shinawatra. It formed a government after last May's election, where the Progressive Move Forward party won the most votes, but was blocked from taking power by still powerful elements linked to the military and traditional elites. On Tuesday, Stretha said that Thaksin was a man who had benefited the country and could give good advice to his daughter to serve the country. On Russia-Ukraine war, Mike Johnson, United States House of Representatives Speaker, has cast doubts on the fate of $95.3 billion aid package for countries, including Ukraine and Israel, as the Senate voted to improve the legislation intended at reassuring Washington's allies. Johnson, the top Republican in the House, said the Senate had failed to meet the moment by not tackling security on the U.S.-Mexico border, which he described as the most pressing issue facing our country. In a statement on Monday, he said the mandate of national security supplemental legislation was to secure America's own border before sending additional foreign aid around the world. Johnson earlier said that a former version of the bill will be dead on arrival, as curbs it placed on unauthorized migration did not go far enough. The majority of Senate Republicans last week voted to kill a bipartisan bill that included the most comprehensive immigration reforms in years amid opposition by ex-President Donald Trump, who has led his party to adopt more skeptical stances towards immigration and intervention overseas. After shutting out the immigration provisions from the legislation, the Democratic-led Senate on Monday voted 66 to 33 to bring the military assistance package closer to a final vote that could come as soon as Wednesday. The deal reflected our security, our values, our democracy, and will be a down payment for the survival of Western democracy and the survival of Western values, Democratic Senate leader Chuck Schumer said. The entire world is going to remember what the Senate does in the next few days, Schumer said. Joe Biden, U.S. President, has urged Congress to hastily approve additional military aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Asia-Pacific allies, including Taiwan. Conservative Republicans in the House have resisted Biden's calls, insisting on measures to tackle illegal immigration at the southern border and questioning the need to continue support for Ukraine. Still on Russia-Ukraine crisis, Ukraine claims it has proof Russia fired an advanced hypersonic missile, one that professionals say is almost impossible to shoot down for the first time in the almost 2-year-old war. The government-run Kyiv Scientific Research Institute of Forensic Expertise said debris recovered after a February 7th attack on the Ukrainian capital pointed to the use of a Zircon hypersonic cruise missile by the Russian military. The institute, which is part of Ukraine's Justice Ministry, said markings on the parts and fragments, the identification of components and parts, the features of the relevant type of weapon point to the first ever use of the Zircon in combat. Ukrainian authorities reported 4 people were killed and 38 others wounded in Kyiv during the February 7th attacks, but no casualties have been directly attributed to the alleged Zircon missile. There was also no mention of the firing platform for the missile, though former reports said it has been deployed on a warship. Experts say the Zircon, if it lives up to what the Russian government says about it, it is a formidable weapon. Its hypersonic speed makes it invulnerable to even the best Western missile defenses like the Patriot, according to the United States-based Missile Defense Advocacy Alliance, MDAA. The alliance says its speed has been put up at March 8th, or almost 9,900 kilometers per hour. Hypersonic is defined as any speed above March 5 rather. The site also points to the missile's plasma cloud as another valuable feature. During flight, the missile is completely covered by a plasma cloud that absorbs any rays of radio frequencies and makes the missile invincible to radars. This allows the missile to remain unnoticed on its way to target, it says. Additionally, the MDAA says the Zircon is a maneuvering anti-ship hypersonic cruise missile with a range of somewhere between 500 and 1,000 kilometers. Leader Vladimir Putin bragged about the Zircon missiles the ship was carrying when the Russian Navy frigate Admiral Gorshkov set out on a combat mission last January. Away from Russia-Ukraine war, now to the United States. Authorities in the United States' biggest city have said 1 person has been killed and 5 others wounded in a shooting at a subway station in New York City. On Monday, gunfire broke out after an argument between 2 groups of teenagers at a train platform in the Bronx as office workers and students were beginning their evening commute, according to authorities. Police said a 34-year-old man was killed with the injured, including a 14-year-old girl, a 15-year-old boy, and a 17-year-old. Police said they were searching for at least 1 shooter, although they have not ruled out the possibility that more than 1 person was involved. We don't believe this was a random shooting. We don't believe this was just an individual shooting indiscriminately onto a train. We believe this shooting all stemmed from a dispute between 2 groups that started on a train, Police Transit Chief Michael Kemper said. Gun violence is not rare in the United States compared with other developed countries. although New York City is safer than other major urban centers and shootings on city's subway system are sporadic. Now on more stories on elections, over 200 million to vote in Indonesian election. On Wednesday, over 200 million eligible voters will head to the polls in Indonesia in what is billed as the world's biggest single-day election. The extensive Southeast Asian nation, the world's third largest electoral democracy and largest Muslim majority country, has made impressive gains since the fall of the late dictator Suharto's authoritarian regime in 1998, morphing into one of Asia's most vibrant democracies and economies. Hosting a vote in the world's largest archipelagic nation is a big effort. The country is wider than the United States and spans 3 time zones. It is made up of more than 18,000 islands and islets, of which 6,000 are inhabited, and over 150 languages spoken across its breadth. The campaign has been dominated by big personalities in a decisive election that will also select some 20,000 other national and provincial lawmakers. According to the General Election Commission, younger Indonesians are key, with around half of registered voters being under the age of 40. Job opportunities are top of mind for many voters, with presidential hopefuls vowing to propel the country's economic growth, fueled by rich natural resources and trade opportunities. But climate change and illegal logging challenge Indonesia's sustainable future. The race is a 3-way contest between an ex-army general and 2 former governors. Prabowo Subianto, 72, a former military general and incumbent defense minister, is running for president for a 3rd time, and he's leading the polls. Another main contender is Ganjar Pranowo, the candidate of the ruling Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle. He served 2 terms as governor of Central Java, which has won him a large following outside the capital, Jakarta, in Indonesia's most populous island. His running mate is Senior Minister Mahfud MD. Former Jakarta Governor Anies Baswedan is running as an independent candidate. He has strong links with Islamic political groups, and his vice presidential pick, Mohammed Iskandar, is the leader of Indonesia's largest Muslim political party, the National Awakening Party. Moving now to African scenes, over 20 miners stuck in Ethiopian cave. Rescue operations are continuing in a remote village in northern Ethiopia after a cave collapse shot in more than 20 artisanal miners. The incident happened 3 days ago in the Delanta district while the miners were searching for opal gemstones, according to reports. However, it is not clear the exact number of individuals trapped, and the challenging terrain has made rescue efforts difficult, according to local officials in a report. Hundreds of locals are trying to dig openings for the miners, as the village's landscape has made it difficult to get support from machines. Rescue efforts have so far been abortive, but the authorities remain hopeful of finding survivors. The officials said that in an earlier incident, a miner was found alive after he was buried inside a cave for 7 days. Liberia's defense minister quits amidst protests. On Monday, Liberia's new defense minister resigned from his post just 10 days after being appointed, following a protest by soldiers' wives, the presidency said. The resignation marks the first political crunch facing Liberia's new president, Joseph Boakai, since his inauguration at the end of January. The presidency said in a statement, Boakai has received and accepted a letter of resignation from the recently confirmed Minister of National Defense, Prince C. Johnson. The president swiftly announced a provisional replacement, naming General Geraldine Janet George to major post. In his resignation letter, Johnson cited the current political and civil disturbances occasioned by the protests of women believed to be wives of servicemen. He wished to preserve the peace and security of the state, the statesman added. Wives of Liberian soldiers set up roadblocks near the capital, Monrovia, and elsewhere in the country, forcing Boakai to cancel planned National Army Day celebrations on Monday, according to reports. The women were airing numerous grievances, ranging from low salaries and pensions to a lack of social security, electricity shortages, and corruption within the armed forces. They also demanded the defense minister's resignation, blaming him for a reduction in the salaries of Liberian soldiers returning from peace missions in Mali. Now we take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll bring you more stories. Don't go anywhere. You're welcome back. Stories from Nigeria now says PDP governors talk tough over high cost of living. On Monday, state governors elected under the aegis of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) said Nigeria, under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu's All Progressive Congress-led federal government, was almost on the path to becoming like Venezuela. Venezuela is presently facing challenges such as political corruption, insistent scarcities of food and medicine, shutdowns of businesses, high unemployment rates, decreased productivity, violations of human rights, severe economic mismanagement, and heavy reliance on oil, all of which have exacerbated the crunch. There has been a notable upsurge in abduction cases and numerous other crimes in Abuja and other regions of Nigeria recently. Furthermore, prices of foodstuff have been increasing, making it challenging for the majority of Nigerians to afford. To tackle the economic and security challenges, the PDP governors renewed their call for state police and urged the federal government to address the decreasing value of the naira. The governors, who made the call after the meeting at the Oyo State Governors Lodge in Asokoro, Abuja on Monday, said they were committed to overhauling and repositioning the PDP to serve as an effective opposition to the ruling party in Nigeria. Bala Mohammed, the chairman of the forum and Bauchi State Governor, who described the party as the most democratic party, said, "What we are doing is providing constructive criticism of the federal government's objectionable policies." Mohammed revealed that the PDP governors will work closely with the APC-led federal government in a way that will offer some relief to people at the grassroots level. Vice Chairman, PDP Governors Forum Siminalayi for Barra River State, host Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State, Amadu Umaru Fintiri of Adamawa State, Caleb Muswang of Plateau State, Dauda Lawal of Zamfara State, Kefas Agbu of Taraba State, Godwin Obaseki, Edo State, Deputy Governor of Enugu State, and Deputy Governor of Delta State, Monday John Oyeme, Delta State, were governors in attendance. And finally on the news, 113.8 million unregistered Nigerians query population size. Notwithstanding efforts made to close the gap, the difference between the number of issued national identification numbers (NINs) and the country's population figure remains great, raising concerns about the country's ability to meet critical milestones. This comes as the enrollment figure and distribution pattern raise questions on the reliability of the population estimations, which the National Population Commission (NPC) fixed at close to 280 million last year. Some experts have started to doubt if the country's actual population has not been overrated, especially with childbirth control adoption gaining grip in the southern part of the country in recent years and not still hold up in high infant mortality. There were 104.16 million issued NINs as of December, a figure that is less than 50% of the projected population of the country. This suggests that there is still a gap of 113.8 million. Identity management, with its ability to include broad segments of the population, is considered a critical infrastructure for nation building and economic planning. Indeed, the quest for accurate and comprehensive data on major identification systems has become significant in Nigeria's speedily developing digital landscape. Today, various investments have gone into the similar data capturing processes in the country, including bank verification number (VVN), national identification number (NIN), voter registration, SIM registration, passport issuance, and driver's license registration. With steps to sync the dissimilar data into one harmonized form in the heart of governance, the country has been incapable of closing the gap between NIN registration and the population figure. A recap of major stories says Palestinian American families decry U.S. silence. Thailand's ex-Prime Minister Shinawatra to be released. U.S. House Speaker criticizes it released as Senate supports deal. Ukraine alleges Russia's debut hypersonic missile use, and 1 dead, 5 wounded in New York shooting. And that's all on the news. Enjoy the rest of your day.